How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Because in the first instance, to be honest, I want to follow my own curiosity. Kia ora koutou.
Cześć.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, well, I'm between the witaj. Witaj is more formal. Cześć is more.
Witaj.
Cześć is more for between friends, which I think is appropriate.
Oh, yes, thank you. I like that. I like that. How have you been? What's
I've
been
been
happening?
very good.
You look like you've been really busy. I've been keeping up with your many travels, and I got to tell you, I've been feeling a little bit jealous about it.
That well, I think we talked about it. It's when I look at my friends, what they're doing, I'm jealous too. So I think it's just normal. Yeah, I've been fortunate to do a couple of seminars, with a couple upcoming seminars. Which is a great thing to do. Unfortunately, the ones when I'm invited somewhere are much better than the ones when I'm organizing. So I think for the next one here in Kempo, we've got only like 6 or 7 people coming, but it's okay.
Yeah.
My friend coming from Poland, so we're gonna have a plenty of fun.
Yeah, I you know what I like about the smaller seminars? I taught a small seminar for Māori martial arts since last we caught up. I find the hardest thing about pardon me, the hardest thing about seminars, and I'm glad we're having this catch up to sort of talk about it, is that I find the worst part of a seminar is afterwards and in my own head. I find that enjoy their seminars, and people seem to. I don't teach seminars as often as you do, but whenever I've taught them, the worst time, the most difficult time, where I struggle a little bit is just with a bit of self-doubt after the seminar. And I start running it through my head and start sort of saying to me, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I wish that I'd done more of this, and I wished I'd talked less or talked more, or, so on and so forth. And then I'm quite self-conscious about photos. I'm not a great photo person. It's hard, you'll know this yourself, having to edit yourself is always a difficult thing too, because you're going, oh my goodness. Mind you, I do have to say, if we're talking about jealousy, I saw you do those stiff leg rope climb, and then I got super jealous. So, it's all about self-doubt, isn't it? How do you do? How are you with seminars? I mean, you do a lot of them. Do you have any kind of thoughts on them afterwards, or do you just kind of pretty much no problem?
Yeah, for me it's a twofold. So I always stressed before that I'm trying to plan and make sure that people get what they want, and just like you, I'm comparing myself to people around me. So Christian Vedevard has no presence on the internet and got the 160 people on his seminars. He's got a 32 seminars a year booked. I've got only 14, and you're thinking well, but he's the happiest man ever in martial arts.
Yeah.
And I'm the grumpy one, so go figure. No, it's always very stressful going into the seminar. I always feel very anxious that I'm not going to deliver. And it's always that self-doubt why people would come to train with me, right? And after seminar as well, anybody who been organizing seminar with me will tell you that they got lots of messages. Is that you sure it was okay? How your students found it? How is this? And but the simple truth is that those who enjoyed, they invited me again, and those who didn't enjoy it, they don't. So it's not for everybody.
Cool. Look, it's interesting you talk about the number of seminars. You 14 seminars, which again with Christian Sensei, you're sort of saying, but he teaches this amount. For me, 14 is just unbelievable. I teach maybe, if I'm lucky, maybe 2 or 3 seminars a year. It's interesting how comparison is kind of the killer. And do you always go into seminars with plans? You always have it really well structured?
So no. Answer is no. I'm usually trying to have a feel for what people want and what is expected of me. We have a chat before. I'm learning more to be more structured because I've got the chaos in my head. Usually, and again, if I'm doing like applications to something, they're very, very different depending on the day and depending on the situation. So I don't have a formal structure, but I now started copying from Ian Abernathy and Christian as well. The subjects that I can teach, so it's not a mixed bag. But people say like Tai Sabaki based on Ashihara. I've got seminar on a sporting competition kind of preparation and finding your unique style of fighting. I've got obviously Bunkai for a Pinan series or whatever kata people want. And I've got my karate for mental health. What we're actually talking about is more like a talk workshop. So it's more geared towards the teachers. And I had a fantastic feedback on this one because we are actually talking, instead of just training, we're going through the drills, how to teach people and how to improve people's attendance and how to not put them off from the training and how to coach. So this is starting to be popular. So I'm trying to get a themes. It depends on what people want. And obviously throws and landings, this is a big part of what I do. So.
Yeah.
How about for you? Are you doing a structure or?
I tend to, there's kind of a couple ways I do things. So for me, I kind of think of a theme. So what I try and do when I do seminars, last year I finished doing a series of seminars that I founded about, golly gosh, in 2018. And I called it the Gorju guys. And basically it was kind of, the idea was that to get a group of people together who we as much as possible got them to train with each other as much as possible, to round robin. You had 7th dans training with green belts, and vice versa. You had young and old and male and female and strong and not so strong, and all these different people training together. And for me, the concept was always allowing people the space and creating the safe space where they could actually be vulnerable enough where they could find the answers together through technique. So I always had more of a philosophy and less of a kind of methodology. And it kind of developed over the years. But what I realized was that when I do seminars, I generally walk into a space, a dojo or a gym or wherever, and I kind of go like, who's here? And how can I be of service to everyone who's here? And I found actually talking to Hunty Patrick McCarthy, a name drop, that's one of the things that he does. He's got a library of, he's basically a walking encyclopedia of martial arts. But that's kind of what he does. But I think also too, for me, I'm not comparing myself to him, but I'm saying that I think there's a certain amount of creativity and a certain amount of improvisation, it's really important, but I think having a theme is really important. Pardon me. So for each year, what I'd do is I'd create a theme or kind of a saying. And one year I created, the sign for nuclear waste or nuclear, and it was basically about how do we rid ourselves of toxicity in martial arts. And the whole idea, the whole concept was that the way in which we do it is by honestly training together. And it was awesome. It was such a great and well attended, and it was really cool. But I think also too, for me, I got to the point by the time by the time I stepped off last year, that I kind of wanted to go in my own direction. I think I'd spent a lot of time creating the platform, but also you're so busy running around trying to get flights and organize venues and do all the media and all the rest of that I started to be less and less involved in the actual seminar, which is the reason that I selfishly wanted to be a part of it. And then of course it started to, when you get a group of people together, everyone brings their own ideas, which is a really good thing. But I think for me, I realized that I wasn't really doing what I kind of wanted to, and that in itself kind of led to a bit of anxiety, I suppose. Excuse me. Led to a bit of anxiety, and I just wasn't happy. And I was just kind of, I was doing what I needed to do the seminar, and the people were great. The instructors were awesome and made some great friendships. But I just felt, after a while, that creativity kind of fled, and I just sort of started doing what I needed to. So, a long answer to your question, but I think that I do have a process, but it's less of right, I'm going to teach technique A, B, and C. I'm going to go, this is the principle that I want to kind of get across. And I'm lucky in that I am quite creative in the way that I teach. I don't say that to have a big head. I'm saying that I think it's just the way my brain works. And because I learned to read quite late in life, so I see things, I'm quite a visual kinesthetic learner as well. And that's kind of how I approach. Sorry, that was a very long ramble.
Oh, that's okay. Well, you have to follow what you want to do, right? Yeah, it took me quite a long time to figure out how I want to teach or what I want to teach, and there's a lot of influences and a lot of time thinking that that went shit, that was shit. But being privileged to teach a lot with people who are more experienced than I am in that space, allow me to steal things that work for them and kind of put them all together for myself. And now it seems to be working. Obviously, there's always work to do with that, but you just have to find your own unique way and trust it. I see lots of people coming in, and I've been one of those people who tries to copy people, especially the ones you like. Oh, I'm going to be doing like this, going to be like this. But through that experimentation, you're just figuring out your own way. It's like with everything in life, right? So hopefully I got my unique style, and that's my kind of selling point, that people actually want to learn that and want to do what I do. And, it is what it is.
I think they do. I think from what I've seen, what I appreciate about you, there's a couple of elements that I see in your seminars. One, that you're hands-on. Like if you're getting people to spar, you'll jump on in there. You'll tool up and you get on in there. It's not sort of a thing where you're kind of there standing on the throne issuing orders. You actually get in there and mix it up and have a really good time. And I think that's really refreshing. I think that for me, the idea that you're actually getting in there and having an opportunity to actually do the stuff is really important. I think also too, there's an author that I like, Neil Gaiman, who talked about when you first start out. He's a writer. He says you try and sound like so many people before, and you get to a certain point where you have to sound like other people before you sound like yourself. And I think it's true in martial arts. I mean, that's how we come up. Like, when you talked about our last conversation, you talked about the influence that your sensei had. Coming up, we're going to try and be like our sensei. I know that I have. And it takes time, to develop who you are. And I think that the difficulty, at least for me, and I don't know if it is for you, it's that thing of going, actually, people really enjoyed it, and just being able to leave it at that. It's kind of like another friend of mine's a music producer, and he talks about the biggest lesson that he has taught himself is knowing when to walk away from it. Because he's always tinkering and he always revisits it, and he's doing this and he's doing that. He says the art is not so much in the production. The art is in knowing when step away, And I'm trying to adopt that myself.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, you can overdo the goodness, isn't it? But I think we forgot to do an intro for this podcast.
Oh, please,
for those who listen, the idea is that we're planning to do a monthly or bi-monthly catch-up. It's going to be streamed on both Anchor's Black Belt and Invisible Sensei. And you can listen to whichever you prefer. And we just try to process our mental health and show people that it's okay to be in a different moods and process different things in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to doing these, and I think it's really refreshing to be able to talk about something that I think, as men, as martial artists, as instructors, as students, I don't know a lot of people that really talk about it, to be totally honest, especially in the martial arts, and especially amongst male martial artists. There's a lot of just say us and go kick something hard.
Yeah. And we are on the splendid start. Meant to talk yesterday, but Tuari was too busy with his gradings and stuff, and we didn't make it. And today I decided to, obviously, great idea, to update my computer just before the podcast, so nothing bloody works. Bloody Windows. So that's why.
But
if
you know what? You wouldn't know it. To look at your image and to hear your audio, you wouldn't know it. It still looks and sounds really good.
I know it. It bugs me.
Yeah.
So last time when we spoke, and I've seen your post, you've been preparing yourself for going out there and grabbing the internet world with your Patreon and stuff, and then with crickets. How's that going?
Yeah.
I'd be pressurizing you.
I think one of the catalysts for this was our last kind of conversation, in that a few years ago I tried probably about 5-6 years ago, I tried to do the same thing. And to be honest, there was a couple of things that went wrong. One, I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I guess the podcast and kind of my offerings were still quite, I didn't really have much of a community, to be totally honest. I had some really good people who were listening, but there's maybe a half dozen people. I still don't have a huge community of people as far as I'm aware. But what I have is some really good people. I mean, like yourself, there's a couple of other people who have stepped forward to sort of really support the idea. The biggest thing was also the notion that people would want to train with me, and that I had something to teach. And I think that I just kind of, it's so funny. I talked about this on my podcast, so I won't go on and on about it. But I was out in the rain a couple of weeks ago, wrapping my makiwara with string, and I'm out in the rain, and it's pouring with rain. I probably shouldn't have been out there. Well, it started pouring with rain, and it's freezing cold. You can see that I'm inside, but I'm still rugged up. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm stood out here wrapping a makiwara in the rain, freezing my ass off. And I'm going, this is something I really love to do. I'm throwing punches at a plank of wood with rope wrapped around it for a fight I never have, with techniques I don't want to use, but with what occupies my mind, right? And I thought, I just want for the first time, I really want to just see what I'm capable of without being scared. I just said to myself, what would it be like if I lived my life without fear, or well, not without fear, but the fear was in the right place. And I also listened to a podcast about Sensei Steve Lowe and the organization that he started with a bunch of mates who just wanted to train. And the standard of his karate and his beautiful dojo and all the things that have kind of come, I think, at no small cost, but at a certain point, he had to take the jump. At a certain point, he had to believe in himself. And I think you see the benefits of that. So, there's a few things. There was that podcast. There was our conversations. And I think also, too, something which was really cool was that you're honest and open, offer of advice and support and friendship was a really important part of that. Because look, I live at the bottom of the world, literally. I mean, the next stop is Antarctica. So all those things kind of rush through my head, and so I've been working away on it, and just trying to figure out what Patreon means and so on and so forth. And I've got some ideas around what I might do, but I just kind of decided to stop being fearful. I'm still fearful, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because life is just too short. And maybe I should have started 20 years ago. But I think that
I like the saying that it's always the right time, right? I've been in BJJ 10 years ago. Now I'm back into BJJ. Must have been for a reason. I'm doing YouTube since 2007. Some people call me a granddad of internet with the karate content.
Yeah.
And I'm still not successful, but I enjoy it. And I think reading stuff, I decided just like you that I'm not gonna be fearful of. My fear was more getting out there, putting myself out there. That's a constant challenge. And like in a previous video, I was saying I'm still anxious being on a camera, but now I allow myself to educate myself on using the technology because I'm technologically impaired. So I allow myself now to do more education and digging in towards what's working on the internet and stuff like that. And I think it's my time coming because as the AI advances more, the more people are drawn to imperfect and real content. So you've got the space, people like authenticity instead of all perfect actors. So here you go. Here I am waiting for you guys, as imperfect as possible. But you get what you see. So I think that's my next stage, and I think it's a good time for you that you took that challenge and just it's gonna be always fearful, but go forward and it starts paying off. It is for me. It's about 4 or 5 years since I'm starting now. It's starting to come back to me with the benefits, right? It's not huge benefits, but the ball is starting to roll. And as my friend, I don't know if you know Matt Jardine. He wrote a nice book.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately he disappeared. Nobody can find him. He's I think he's doing another book and isolating himself to focus on that book. But he said that you always pushing up the hill, but that hill have to finish, and when it comes down, it starts slowly, but that ball is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're getting momentum. And he told me that, but I think 7 or 8 years ago, and it's true. It's true. Just keep going, keep pushing, and then suddenly you have to go other way.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that sort of coming down the other side, like I think for me, you climb a hill, you find a mountain, and I think sometimes the actual downward part of the downward trajectory of that is actually something which is self-created a lot of times, at least for me. And I think that it's just like, as you say, I really like your point about AI. Like, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what I want to, how it's going to work out, but I just know that I want to do it. And I've been encouraged by some people that I respect to actually put my stuff out. And it's funny because, when I was in Okinawa and teaching seminars on Okinawa and in Japan, I was still kind of like pinching myself and still going, oh, well, they're just, in the back of my head, I'm going, oh, they're just being, polite. They don't really like what I'm
Now,
doing. They're just
now,
being
now
polite.
I am jealous of you. Now I'm jealous of you. You've been teaching on Okinawa. I never been to it. I was planning to go to Japan, but the Fukushima exploded, so I thought I better not go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but the thing is it's like anywhere you teach, right? Anywhere you teach, and it's just really, I just would really like. And the thing that I like about it is meeting other people and seeing how they train, and which informs a lot of what I do. And this, and it's basically it's a game of thievery. Get an opportunity to go around train with people and just take as much as you can to practice and be inspired by. But I think, in terms of self-care and all those sorts of things, martial arts is one of the things I'm really enjoying. Is I think martial arts is a massive part of my self-care as well. And when I start getting sort of too angsty about teaching seminars or doing podcasts or filming stuff, like there's a couple of times where I go out and I go, right, I should take my camera out and I should film this, and I'm thinking about what's the light doing and is my camera charged and do I have a mic, and then I just sort of go, just go outside and train, man, and so that's sort of something that I kind of struggle with, finding that balance. I mean, there's some videos that I filmed when I've been the most depressed I've ever been. But they seem to be really popular videos. But I'm just out there. I says, right, I'm going to put the camera on the ground. I'm just going to train, where I've just sort of not been going through something. But amazingly, they've ended up, at least to my mind, looking pretty good. So it's so strange.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've got the same. When I'm going with a plan to the dojo. Okay, today we're gonna be recording this, recording that, and just I'm thinking I have to set up everything. Oh, just let's train. Use the phone
yeah,
somewhere in the corner, and
yeah,
that's it. Yeah, but we actually just been just chatting with my guys because we got quite a small group. So in a way to not be forced to get advertisement, we decided that we're gonna be doing a group for let's say more advanced people. So somebody who had already a background in martial arts. We're not gonna be targeting the beginners because it's hard work and that's not what I really want to do. Although we welcome beginners, no problem, but we're not gonna be actively seeking them out. So
yeah.
as now we hit the allowance from the YouTube that it pays me for content after what
Wow.
since 2007.
Wow.
So we decided we're gonna try to do as a group more like better content
Yeah.
and have all the money from that going towards either equipment, whole hire, or just going out as a group. But we're gonna have a effort. I'm just working on a video now. That we have two cameras filming. One is closer, one is farther.
Yeah.
Just see how I can ruin that with my editing skills.
One thing which is interesting, I have never made money. I mean, I've made money from martial arts in the sense that I've been paid for it, but it always seems to go back into the martial arts. So with the seminars that I was doing with my friends, what we did was, we had a pool of money from enrollments, and the first couple of years, I got told off by some people who knew, said, "You are so undercharging." I go, "Oh, okay, was I?" And so we get a little bit of money, but that would go into next year. We try and get plane tickets and hall hire and all those sorts of things. So it was never a kind of a profitable kind of a thing. But it's so much fun to do, and I love when you go and do these things and sort of they come off. But I've never had much head for business. I've never been much of a business person, to be totally honest. Fortunately, I've got people who are, in the sense that they will say, "Hey, why are you why are you doing this for free?" And I'm going, "Well, I'm just glad that people want to, go." Because my wife, she says to me, the problem with you is you make everyone becomes your friend. And I'm going, yeah. And she goes, maybe that's not such a good business strategy. And she doesn't mean to that in any kind of negative way, but it's just kind of like I have a difficulty charging people for things and asking for money and those sorts of things. Always, I think it might be a cultural thing. That's the idea that you would,
I think it's the martial arts idea, because we all been hearing that, or if you're charging money as a teacher, you are not the real karate person. You don't love it. You're just a business person. And I was
Yeah.
struggling with that for a long, long time. And still, I don't charge. I think I charge fairly, but most of the money goes back into the martial arts anyway. Just to be clear with people who think that I'm rolling in money from YouTube, this month I had a whole £25.
Wow, that
For
much.
1,500 videos.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny. I always feel the same way. Like, one of the reasons that I wanted to start sort of, ask for contributors and subscriptions and those sorts of things and working away on that was because this month I couldn't afford the apps to do. I couldn't afford to keep up my apps, in the sense that the ones that I used to edit my visuals, my AI, so doing AI images and things like that. My video editing app, and even Zoom, like it's all lapsed, because I haven't been able to just find the money to keep all those apps going. And I'm kind of going, I love that people enjoy the content that I put out, but at some point I have to sort of go, look, if you love it, can you help me to continue
Yeah.
to do it? And that's a kind of a difficult thing. I think also too, we're talking about mental health. Where I know for me, I'm very big on being there for everyone else's kind of problems, but I'm not so good on speaking about or putting out mine. I tend to kind of isolate and try and distract myself from whatever's going on. So there's a fair amount of anxiety about even putting out that video about doing an online dojo. I mean, but I think I'm just kind of, we're just like every other family. We have mortgages and bills and all that sort of stuff. And I think that I would like it to be perhaps it's not a profitable venture, but at least one that's not taking resources that could be better used for the running of, just our household. That would be good. That would be something which was good. I mean, also too, I'm very lucky in that my partner, she's a sandan in Gōjuru and a black belt in Kempo. And that, so she knows the life. So I get a lot of leeway to do these kind of things, so I'm very lucky. But it does take time. People don't realize how much time it takes to put videos together, and how much time it takes to film and then refilm, and then even editing the podcast and doing graphics and trying to do it in a timely manner and all that sort of stuff. It's so time intensive. Like my friend Josh Simmers of the Okinawa Karate podcast, and I mean, the amount of time. I mean, he lives there in Okinawa, and his podcast is one of my favorite. He hasn't done any new episodes in a while, just because it was so labor intensive. And like Michael Hagan from the Way of the Fist podcast. I mean, life is so busy at the moment. You do great content, but then the thing is, it's great to have these conversations, but then how do you find the time to balance your family, your relationships, work, just life, your rest, with doing these things. And then there's the other part of it. You do it because you love it, but it's also like, I think sometimes that was the thing about getting comments, getting negative feedback and things like that. Feedback's always good, I think, if it helps improve. But when you have people kind of basically shitting all over it, it's kind of like, man, I don't see you out there with doing anything. Everyone has an opinion. And also too, I don't know if you've had this, but I've been given shit about people that I've had on my podcast. Like people go, oh, people who for whatever reason have some kind of beef or history, so on and so forth, feel like that there's kind of an ownership of the podcast. It goes, what are you having that person on for? What are you having? I'm going, I'll have anyone I like on. Because in the first instance, to be honest, I want to follow my own curiosity. I want to have conversations with you. I want to have conversations with whoever. Firstly, because I'm curious. I'm pushing record and editing up, so maybe other people can get something out of it. But in the first instance, I'm not thinking about what's going to get me thumbs up or likes, or I'm following my own curiosity. And maybe that kind of cost me. Like I see people like Jesse Henkamp, who is, arguably one of the most famous bloggers, vloggers, content producers in the world. But also I'm not interested in interviewing Steven Seagal or going in a BJJ tournament just to, or there's this kind of thing where I think sometimes if we're doing things because we think that's what will get us likes and views, maybe that's, for me, that's not a reason to do it, And I don't mean any disrespect to Jesse, I really in the early days I really enjoyed his stuff, but I don't know. Maybe it's kind of I'm a grumpy old bastard. Maybe I'm there.
Yeah, but you have to follow your own stuff, and I actually never had anybody complaining about my guests, but maybe because I prefer to interview people less known. I'm finding that everybody interviews everybody who is a top player, but not many people is willing to talk to a average Joe. I had people from my dojo, I had people from local council, and I'm finding those a bit more interesting. I would really love to interview a few of my elderly. So I've got about a group of 40 elderly, but they don't want to go on podcast. They are not interested in recording anything, but just sitting with them and listening to their stories is so much. I had a guy who jumped from a plane during the war and stuff like that, but
wow,
he doesn't wanna talk about it on the thing because that's new technology. They are not interested, right? They bring like old radio or something that he might talk.
Yeah,
But not.
and that's interesting you bring that up, actually, because I've been really lucky with some of the people that I've got to. There's no one more surprised than me when I get people who are so-called high profile. But it's been interesting. People complain about certain people, and maybe it's a political thing or whatever. And then I've had people complain when I've gone and I had a friend of mine who was a brown belt, and people going, "What are we going to learn? What are we going to learn from a brown belt?" People coming at me, "Why are you having a brown belt on?" I'm going, because he's a really interesting person with an incredible life experience, and he does karate. Like, I think if you want to learn how to punch and kick and which elbow to throw and whether or not you should do foot sweeps or headbutt, I'm probably not the podcast you want to listen to. I'm really interested in I guess I'm interested in people's stories. I'm interested in why people do what they do. And there's kind of a number of podcast kind of styles. And there's some podcasts out there with some really great people who don't know when to shut up. A pet peeve of mine is when you get someone on a podcast, and I've watched a couple, where they'll go, "Oh, hi, Les. It's great that you're doing, anxious black belt and so on and so forth, and you're kicking a punch, but let's talk about me." So it's, and like the biggest thing, having said that, as you can hear, I'm a blabbermouth. So the biggest thing that I have to edit in any interview is my own long, boring ass questions. That's the only thing I edit. But I think that, you know, at the heart of it all, I think people should be interested in other people's stories. You know, sometimes the martial arts isn't even the point. Sometimes how good they are at doing this stuff is not the point. That they might bring a really amazing life experience, you know, or they've gone through some kind of challenge, or they're going through some kind of challenge. I mean, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, they were, you know, after my friend as well, and things that as a man never came to my mind, and how the women are impacting the dojo. The biggest lessons were from my students who turn, I won't say her age, but she started being menopausal, and how
Mm,
that impacted her training and attitude
mm,
to the training. It's one of the podcasts, and this is one of the more popular ones because hey, there are women in martial arts, and they like to listen
yeah,
about that stuff, and you know,
yeah,
we kind of focusing on all those great masters, which because the women hitting the glass ceiling in martial arts and are not promoted higher because they have to go and have a babies and take care of the babies, so there's not so much time for training. There's obviously
yeah,
less of them, and then we just listen to the perspective of a male in martial arts. So
yeah. So true. Well, you know, there was a famous judo instructor, and I think she was based out of based in San Francisco. Her name was Keiko Fukuda Sensei,
mhm.
and they did a film on her. She passed away a couple of years ago. I think she was in her 90s when she passed away.
Mm.
And Keiko Fukuda, her judo teacher was Jiro Kano.
Mhm.
That's how long she'd been doing it. She was in the Kodokan, and she hit the ceiling. I think it was like 6 dan, was as high as women were allowed to actually go. So
Mm.
finally, after much kind of support from other judo organizations and people, I think she got to night. She finally got her ninth dan.
Mm.
And she was, you know, she'd done nothing else but judo. You know, she devoted her life to the art. She didn't have children. She wasn't married. She didn't do any of. She just found her place in the dojo. And you know, it's those sort of stories that really interest me. It's those sort of
Mm.
stories that people need to hear. I mean, the little, you know, the things that I've observed about women doing martial arts across the board, you know, it's a shit show for the most part,
Mm.
especially in these
Yeah.
so-called, you know, in these karate organizations. Is absolutely disgusting. Um, the ways in which they're treated, downgraded. It's that whole thing of, you know, to be as thought of as a half as good as a guy, you have to be twice as good, and it's
Yeah.
such a true thing. I mean, I wouldn't want to sort of, you know, go on too much about a woman's perspective, not being a woman, but I mean, those sort of things are really important. It can't always be this kind of like, oh, you know, oh, this is the punch, and then I come into grappling range. I mean, to be honest, that shit gets really meta and really boring really
Mm.
fast. I want to know why people do it, what kept them doing it, you know, why did they come back, and what do they find doing it, you know? Or
Mm.
else it's just, it's just, you know, it's like, I guess, sitting with rocket scientists talking about particles and fusion and quantum physics. And if you don't know what they're talking, if you don't have any idea about it, it just sounds like blah, 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 blah.
Mm. Very true. Very true.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, I had quite a few women on my podcast, and you know, quite a few really good friends are heads of their own organization, obviously independent organizations, and yeah, they try to breaking that ceiling, and they're doing a great job. So every time when I've got the opportunity, I bring them on podcast because that's one side of I can help. So as you said,
mm.
we're doing that to serve people, right? To help.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is that the time is coming also too with that. You know, we're sitting at a really interesting time because I think the world of martial arts is starting to really change. Things are starting
Mm.
to really shift. Um, you know, there's some really prominent sensei across the board on a bunch of different arts that they've changed the perspective on how you can actually practice martial arts, and
Mm.
that you know, you're talking about independence. So I'm an independent, you're an independent, and I love it.
Mm.
I don't have any desire. You know, there's obvious advantages to being part of a huge organization, but also to, I mean, it can be really shit. I mean,
Mm.
I don't want to sort of go, Babka Kancho, Soke, Grandmaster. Is it all right if I go down the road and I go watch an Aikido class, or I go watch a
Mm.
Taekwondo class, or Krav Maga, or whatever the art might be? You know, I have to ask your permission. I mean, I've had people turn up at seminars and told me all the things they're not allowed to learn. Well, we can do this, but we can't learn anything that's not in our syllabus. And I'm going, that is the strangest thing. You know, like, I mean, how do we grow if we don't expose ourselves to new people and new ways, you know? But
Mm.
I mean, I think it's really cool that you're doing stuff to promote, you know, people who have done actually the brave thing and just kind of stepped out on their own.
Mm.
Um, I mean, you know, because martial arts, and as we know, like for me, like, oh gosh, I might get myself in trouble saying this, but I'm just going to bloody say it. So when I watch people in, say, a style like Shotokan,
Mm.
for me, Shotokan has this really beautiful, strong, and powerful shape, you know, and this sort of aesthetic, and it's a very potent fighting art, of course. But it seems like for me, in a lot of karate styles, you're trying to make yourself into a specific shape. Um,
Yeah.
for me, the only shape I need to worry about is what is the shape that the person that I'm fighting brings out in me. So
Mm.
I'm not looking to be I'm looking to be in some ways shapeless. I'm not looking to look a specific way. I'm going, well, what will work in this particular situation? And I think that that's also true of the people who are um, their doing their own thing. You know, becoming independents. They're getting deeper into the art without constraint. And people say, well, it's not a traditional way. And people talk about, you know, a big thing is also um, when people get together and they compare. What's that thing? Training pedigree. Who did you train with? Where did you get your black belt? Who? What association were they with? And all that horse shit. I'm going. You know, sometimes I just like, you know, like if you come train with me, you be the judge. Maybe my technique is not great. Maybe it's everything you think it is, or maybe it's not. But I prefer to judge people on the content of their technique and the content of the character. You know, you can tell a lot. And all the people that I've met that are really good, they have two things going for them. One, they've usually got a really great sense of humor, and two, they don't take themselves too seriously. They see
Mm.
that, you know, they kind of see what we're doing and kind of go, well, you know, it's kind of a grand nonsense really, and I like that.
Mm. Yeah. On the matter of independence, we managed to create an independent organization
Mm,
with them for, well, we've been part of the previous association since 2000. Then after 10 or 15 years, I tried to organize seminar here, and one of the newer elected bosses said, no, you cannot invite that person because they had a beef with them. I said, well,
uh,
my dojo, I do what I want. And they said, well,
mm,
you cannot do that. So I said, that's my resignation letter. See you later. Goodbye. And then 6 other clubs went without talking to me. They said, oh, we're not happy with that thing happening to you. So we're going as well. So we created a multi-style association, and
mm.
the sole purpose of it is to meet once a year in different country on seminars, catch up. Nobody tells anybody what to do. We
You know,
know.
New Zealand's a country, right? You know, New
Yeah,
Zealand's a great country.
yeah. Well, I send you the details. We just had a new dojo from UK and
Mm,
Bulgaria joining in because
mm,
I know everybody says that, but we're truly independent. Everybody does whatever they want. Nobody tells
mm,
anybody how to run the dojo, how to do that. We
mm.
literally meet up once a year in different locations around the world and party and train.
Yeah,
Just
you know,
going.
and it's funny to me that, you know, people in these massive organizations. I think it's great when you're in a huge organization. I mean, you're in an organization where you've got access to lots of different instructors and so on and so forth. The downside is that what it costs in terms
Mm,
of free thinking. or the ability to kind of, like you say, go and train with other people. It blows my mind. Like even on Okinawa, I was saying to certain people, hey, you should come to this, I'm lucky enough to be doing some seminars. It'd be great to have you there. And they're going, I have to ask my sensei. Even there, they have to, they're not exempt from politics and all those sorts of things there. I mean, and I think also too, it just kind of comes down to, shit, man, I just want to have fun. I just want to enjoy the training. It's all right for it to be fun, when people are getting into the spirit of us and, it has, Budo and all that sort of stuff. I'm going, well, it's not 14th century Japan. It's not 16th century Okinawa. And I get that people sort of fall in love with the idea of Budo. I was in love with the idea of Budo at one point too. I watched too many movies and, but to be totally honest, I think sometimes either people can't fully grasp it, or they grasp it, they take a specific element of it and they take it in the wrong direction, like a religion, I guess. They kind of take the concept and they kind of fit it around. But I love training with people, and I love the conversations we have during training. I love sitting down and have a coffee with them after. And yeah, I think that being an independent is you don't have to ask anyone. And some of the best people in the world are independents and always have been. But they're what's that word? That word? What is not your pedigree? Lineage. Some people beat you over the head with their lineage, and it's kind of like, to be totally honest, it's like a member measuring competition. While I trained at the Zen Nippon Budokai, and Hanchi, Kancho, Soke, so on and so forth, I'm going, yeah, but that's great and that's awesome. Show me what you do. I'm not interested in you doing an impression of them. I want to see what you do. How have you made the art your own? And some people are so frightened by that. And some people are so frightened by, the whole lineage thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, some people have incredible lineages, and that's cool. But it's not a reason to the fact that someone who maybe hasn't trained in Japan or whatever, or had a certificate with a Japanese name on the end of it in the signature, doesn't mean you shouldn't train with that person or give it a try or all these sorts of things. There's plenty of great people out there doing it. And yeah, sometimes we just need to get our heads out of our asses, to be totally honest.
Yeah. With the lineages, it's like with education, right? Because you've been in Oxford, it doesn't mean that you are a good lawyer. It just means that you finished the school, right? You survived, you came through, but that is no guarantees that you're gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, like, what do they say? Education would suggest wisdom, but not guarantee it. I know plenty of wise, super wise, learned people that never went to university or even school, and I know plenty of super thick people that have degrees out the waz. So it's like, yeah, it's good when you can find someone who has that combination of both. But it's funny because I find that when you meet people like that, those people who really have that combination and are really wonderful in it, like I said before, they understand the importance of it, but they don't take it too seriously. It's kind of like all the little yapping dogs that kind of form around these people that kind of then start turning into acolytes and then start turning into like cult members. That's where the problem is. It's all the people who surround themselves. That's where it really starts. And talk about mental health, man. It seems to attract certain approaches seem to attract certain personality types.
For sure, yeah. We can only my thing is that I look less on others or towards others and more towards myself and do what I want to. Yeah, I've been doing martial arts for 30 years. I've seen many masters had the privilege to train with a really good people, nice people. None of them ever said that my stuff is not legitimate. That's good for me.
Mm.
You know, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm looking inwards, not outwards, to see what
Yeah.
people can say or do, whatever. Just focus on myself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why what you do is so good, because you're in on a path of self-realization, as opposed to going, how do I define myself by everyone else's standards? And I think that's definitely the way forward for anyone.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's really important to have a team. It's all really important to have a community, um, and a community in the sense that like people who will tell you what you need to hear,
Yeah.
good or bad sometimes. People who don't have skin in the game. Now they're there because they care. Too
Mm.
many times, like I don't know if when I was younger and I was a black belt quite young, I remember there was this kind of thing when I was a teenager where people would introduce me, hey, this is Tuari, he's a black belt. And I remember thinking at
Mm.
the time, I loved it. My ego absolutely loved it. um, but but the thing which was really a problem was that it was all about my ego. And
Mm.
now, if someone introduced me as, "Hey, this is Durati, he's a sensei or whatever," I'd be horrified. I'd be horrified. Says, like I think sometimes, in terms of a team, you got to be careful, because people will want to be around you for the wrong reasons. They like to be around you because of what they think you are, and what
Mm.
people who like we talking about those people who surround people and become disciples and things like that. You don't need that.
Yeah.
You don't need that. You need friends and family and people who actually care, and colleagues. And or else you start believing your own bullshit. And I did when I was a teenager. But I was disabused of my own greatness, the idea of my own greatness, very young.
Yeah, I was on the opposite end. Every time when somebody is introducing me or he's doing karate and stuff, I felt embarrassed.
Mm,
That's why I
yeah.
never like to train outdoors and stuff like that. It always comes as a great cost when we're going like on those workshops I was saying once a year.
Mm,
We've got the one in Greece that we always train on the beach, and it's
mm,
always a pain
mm.
to get out there and you know.
In your gi? Are you in your
Yeah,
gi?
yeah, be in the public, yeah.
I hate being in my gear in public. Like if I'm teaching somewhere, I might, like, if I'm going from here to a dojo, if I'll put on a big jumper, put my gear on, I'll put a big, hoodie on so that it obscures my gear. So I'm just, but I don't know, like I always had a massive problem doing public demonstrations.
Mm.
I've never liked that. I've done a few when I've been a student of other people, but I just can't, going to some kind of fair or some public thing where people are not actually there to see that. They're just trying to, it just, to me, I've never felt comfortable with that. Like I've got a friend of mine who at certain points in the year, they go to one of the local big, malls, and they set up in the middle of this mall, and someone will be there on this mat doing kato or whatever, doing kia in the middle of this mall, and people will come up and roll in the style, which I think is fine for him.
Mm.
I just couldn't do it. I don't know if it's probably insecurity, but
Mm.
I hate the notion that people, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just it doesn't, for me, it's not a step that I could take comfortably. Maybe it's because I'm hyper vigilant. It just feels odd and uncomfortable for me anyway. Oof, ooh,
Same for me. Same for me. I have to force myself to do that, which is strange for a guy who travels the world teaching in public.
yeah. Well, but the thing is also we get to a certain extent, we get to control who we train with, where we train with, and
Yeah.
how we train. So I'm going up to Australia next week. I'm really lucky that Dojo's bringing me up there. Okinawa Karate Jitsu dojo. I'm going up to catch up with some friends and do some training and some teaching. And right, you can see right now here in New Zealand, it's freezing cold.
That's PJ, right?
Yes,
You're going to visit PJ,
yes,
yeah.
Mr. Broomhall. And PJ at the moment, he's just getting over. He just had got a bit of a body blow from COVID, so he's just getting over that at the moment. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. You know, for me, we met through martial arts, but we've become friends. And I'll go up there and I'll do my little dance and all the rest of that in my nice white gi. But you know, like, it's the friendships is which I really enjoy. You know, it's that stuff is so important, and finding ways to combine all those things is really important. You know, I mean, well, having met you, I'm hoping that I know you put some stuff out about us possibly doing some seminars next year, and I'm keen as mustard. It's great. You question yourself, I question myself, and together we can get together and both be anxious in the same space at the same time, but just do it anyway.
With pleasure. I think for a first episode, that's plenty, hour and a half, looking on the clock.
Oh, it's an hour and a half. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. My cat just came in meowing at me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. Guys, those who are listening, let us know what you think. If that's helpful or not, or useful or not. And we're going to try to do more of them and see how it goes. That's the test one.
Yeah, and also, if you have something you'd like us to discuss, I'd really love to hear it, because you know, we've kind of touched on a few things, but if you have specific things, like specific elements around health and well-being and mental health and the connection to martial arts, you know, hit us up with that as well, because I think you guys might have some ideas about some things that's going on in your head, so it'd be good to hear that as well. But thanks so much for having me, Les. I've had a great time as always.
It's gonna be on both podcasts, so I didn't have you. We have us.
We have us. Well, there's only us. Maybe we go the Invisible Anxious Sensei Black Belt podcast.
Black Belt Sensei.
Yeah, the anxious invisible Black Belt Sensei podcast.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, cool. Speak to you soon. Let me just see if I can. Well done for listening to all of it. You are a superhero. Thank you very much for your support. And if you could leave us that review on a podcast platform, that would be amazing. I appreciate your time, appreciate your support, and I wish you all the best until the next one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Save $100 on the Craftsman V26 Tool Power Tool Combo Kit, now at $199. No matter what the project is, Craftsman's high-quality, high-performance products empower you to build on. Visit Lowe's and check out the full line of Craftsman tools today. Valid through 7/9 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Maximum initial battery voltage measured without a work load is 20 volts. Nominal voltage is 18.